Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. I have spiritual healer and metaphysical teacher RJ Spina with me. This is a continuation of our conversation from the Self-Healing Magic episode. Now, RJ, you briefly mentioned the importance of detachment. I'd like to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, it's one of the keys, I think, to healing, to a greater quality of life in every facet, certainly to self-realization or authentic enlightenment. None of these things can actually tangibly take place without detachment or non-attachment, if that's not as harsh to say non-attachment. So detachment is, here's the first thing I'll say about detachment. Okay, when we're attached to something or someone, some belief, some concept, some person, some experience. Okay, what I want human beings to start to understand is what is it that's attached and what is actually happening? Okay, let's think about watching a scary movie. Here's a silly analogy, and I like silly analogies. Okay, so let's think about we're watching a scary movie, right? So our attention is on the screen, right? Okay, your attention is your energy. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. Okay, so now we're watching this scary movie. All of our attention is on there. We're identifying with what's going on. We're putting ourselves in the situation, right? The person trapped in the house and the bad guys there, whatever it is, right? Okay, so we're identifying and our energy is attached to what's going on the screen. Now, something happens on the screen and we get scared, right? How is that possible? Okay, I just explained how. It's your energy is attached. You are attached to what's going on. So whatever goes on the screen, you feel it. Okay, now what is it that we're using when we do that? Our energy. We use our energy for everything. That's why mastering command over your energy is the key to ultimate success, is having complete command over your energy. And that's what magic is. Okay, so if we're attached, we have no control over ourselves. Whatever happens on the screen, we go for the ride. So when you're attached to anything, a belief, a concept, a person, an event, you have lost control over yourself, which is why people just react. They have lost control, no self-control, controlling the self. That's gone when you're attached. Now, when you detach or non-attachment, here's what happens metaphysically. Let's go back to the scary movie, right? We're attached to what's going on. We're totally identifying, right? Now, if all of a sudden, if we pretended that this was a boring movie, now our energy starts to come back. We're not identifying. We're not attached. It's a boring movie. I don't care. I don't care what happens. And when it's a boring movie and you don't care, no matter what goes on the screen, you're unaffected by it. You're not bothered by it because you have detached from it. Now, metaphysically, when you detach, you're getting your energy back, your power. Detachment is power. And human beings have it backwards because they've been conditioned to have it backwards. They have it backwards. Detachment gives you all of your energy. We use our energy for everything. So when you're detached from something, even your body, believe it or not, when you're detached from your body, no matter what's going on with it, you still know, just like the sun is unaffected by the bad weather, when you're detached from the body, you realize that you're the awareness of what's going on with the body. Oh, that hurts or that feels good. You're the awareness of it. Now, once you have that energy back and you start doing the Ascend the Frequencies healing technique because you're detached, you have room to work. You and the body, there's space between those things. And as soon as there's space between those things, that's where we can do our magic. Now, if there's no space in there, if you're completely attached to what's going on, you're just going to react. You're going to make a big deal about everything, like the scary movie. So detachment is number one, and then learning how to harness your will properly. And your will is your focused energy or attention. So detachment is number one, and then learning how to use your energy or your power properly. That's how we put ourselves back together.
So I think when we have those attachments, and we all have them somewhere, right? When we have them, there's expectations in that relationship or in that object, that experience. And then we're directing our energy towards fulfilling the expectations attached to the attachment. It's fascinating, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And none of that is any level of self-awareness or self-control. So if we really look at that, just what you said, there's no self-awareness and there's no self-control, because whatever you're attached to is in control. And then based upon the conditioning of the mind, of the belief, of the concept, whatever role that we've identified ourselves with, we then have the expectations of how things should be. There is no should. It doesn't exist. What we're all here to do, believe it or not, what we're all here to do is to become self-realized. That is the ultimate. And the data points along our life plan are supposed to be such a bucket of cold water in our face that it wakes us up into our own higher mind, into our own self-realization. The destruction of my body, which I planned out in this incarnation, my last name is Spina, which means spine. When I awoke from emergency life-saving surgery, I had awakened once again into authentic cosmic consciousness. Everything came flooding back to me. So the highest use of suffering is to teach us courage, humility, and grace. And if our suffering doesn't teach us those things, then we have wasted it.
Then we get to come back and suffer again.
Over and over, and it's worse and worse and worse until we finally have to do something about it. So I'd like to see everyone do something about it now, right? So why put it off when it's even harder and more painful the next time?
Tell me some of the kind of miracle stories that you've seen healed through this.
Okay. There are, and people can read these themselves. There is, I don't know how many at this point, dozens and dozens and dozens of testimonials on my website, ascendthefrequencies.com. So you can read them yourself, and some people have done video testimonials, but I'll share one or two. So I believe I was living in San Diego at the time, and a young lady, she was 22, I believe, sent an email in, and she said that she needed a heart transplant. She was diagnosed with things I had never heard of, but she was literally on death's door. She said, I don't know what else to do. I need a heart transplant. I can't function. I can't think straight. I can barely move around. RJ, can you help me? So I did a healing on her, a remote healing, which is really all I do anymore. I don't do anything in person. It's not needed. Did a remote healing on her that lasted that lasted about 15 seconds. And she immediately said, what just happened to me? I feel completely different. And it was so overwhelming because I realized that this soul had signed up for what I call spontaneous healing. So you see this with faith healings a lot. People's souls can sign up. And I've been lucky enough to play the so-called healer in some of these scenarios. This soul signed up for spontaneous healing. She literally was near death. She needed a heart transplant, and her laundry list of things were quite profound. She was completely absolved and resolved of every abnormality in about 10 or 15 seconds. And you can read about it on the website. So this is someone who needed a heart transplant that was literally healed. I've worked with people, inoperable cancer. The cancer was so bad that the doctors won't even, there's nothing you can do. You have 6 to 8 weeks to live. I've helped people that 10 years later, they're totally fine. They're still okay. The soul signs up, and I talk about this in the book. The soul signs up for what I call sort of different levels of healing: spontaneous healing, fast healing, gradual healing, slow healing, or what we'd even call no healing. And the soul signs up for that. Now, depending upon how we work with ourselves in the incarnation, we may have signed up to have certain experiences. But if we're not working with ourselves properly in the incarnation, we may have signed up for fast healing, but because we're really out of alignment, it turns out to be very slow healing or no healing. The opposite is also true. We may have signed up for slow healing, but because we're working with ourselves in such an advanced way during the incarnation, that slow healing has turned into fast healing or spontaneous healing. So I've had as I said, the honor of working with people that were literally on death's door. And all of a sudden, I mean, myself included, and all of a sudden, they're miraculously better. We are unlimited in terms of what we can do if we work with that unlimited part of ourselves. So heart transplants, cancer, paralysis, I've worked with, I don't know how many people that were anxiety and depression, were suicidal, couldn't function, couldn't go outside anymore, couldn't do any of those things. They're now in relationships, have jobs again. I've worked with one lady who had 5 spinal fusions, 5, was on permanent disability. She actually came to see me in person in her walker. Had addiction through all the surgeries. She had developed addiction to painkillers, and alcohol was the only way to numb the pain. She was pretty much non-functional. Totally back to working full-time, no problem, no walker, no addiction to anything, nothing, and no pain in her back. So when we work with ourselves properly, everything is possible. But the key is to work with that unlimited aspect of ourself, which is not the rational, finite, logic, and linear thinking mind.
So what happens if you sign up for no healing? That's the life path that you set out. Can you shift it?
Yeah, what I found is that it all comes down to how we work with ourselves in the incarnation. Because I am able, and probably not just me, I am able to tap into what people have signed up for in terms of their healing and other things, actually. And I've seen people that have signed up for, just as I described, no healing. And because they're working with themselves in such an advanced state, they're changing it. It's kind of like improv, theater improv or whatever, right? You have your script, right? But then you go off script, and sometimes the scene's even better because you went off script and you're so in the moment that what you've done in terms of, it's just an analogy, but in terms of going off script, you've actually improved everything. So we can decide, we can map out in our life plan, no healing, slow healing. We work with ourselves in an advanced way. And dare I say, these teachings are about as advanced as they get. When we work with ourselves in this way, we can totally change that. And the opposite's true. I've seen the opposite. I've seen people sign up for something that they were meant to get over. And because they're so out of alignment with themselves, the ego mind identity has such dominion over their consciousness and their body of energy. They're working so quote unquote poorly with themselves in the incarnation. What they signed up for, they're not able to produce. Now all of a sudden it's slow healing or even no healing because they've made themselves stuck. But we can rewrite or improv when we're here.
Fascinating. Where can we learn more about your work?
Ascendthefrequencies.com, and the book is Supercharged Self-Healing.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You will find all of our conversations on YouTube, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio. Come visit me at thoughtchange.com and learn what energy medicine can do for you. We'll see you again next time.